Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Kari and today I'm doing my January book haul. We're just gonna dive right in. The first one I got is Eris Gone Wild by Laura Lee Girk. This is a romance, where the man is friends with the girl's father, and when her father dies he promises to become her guardian and things go from there. It doesn't sound like there's a huge age difference, which is good because I'm not huge on age differences, but it sounds fun and romances are fun. Next we have Elizabeth of York by Alison Weir. Oh yes I do. This is a nonfiction about Elizabeth of York, who was Henry VII's wife and therefore the mother of Henry VIII. I find her fascinating, but she is often overlooked because of the personalities and other women in the lives of Henry VII and more specifically Henry VIII. I am very intrigued about this woman, and so I'm hoping to learn something more. Next we have Dereliction of Duty by H.R. McMaster, which is about what led to the United States entering Vietnam in 1960, I want to say it was 63, but the 1960s anyway. I wrote it was called a senior paper in high school. We were told that in order to graduate you had to write one, but basically in order to pass the English class that year you had to write a paper on some topic. And so I wrote a paper on how Vietnam and Iraq were the same wars. Lost both of them too. Because of that, this really fascinates me, and I would have been able to use quite a lot of it probably had I had it in high school, so I'm definitely going to read it. Then we have The Viking Wars by Max Adams, which is War and Peace in King Alfred's Britain. This sounds fascinating. I've been listening to the British History podcast, and he had a series on Alfred and Edric. Well, he's working on Edric's Drayona now, but the kings before that, and Alfred's name came up quite a bit. It's not a period I know a lot about because I focus on about 500 years later, but I'm really intrigued, and I'm hoping to get to this, well, we'll see, but preferably in the next 6 months. And then we have 5 Days in London by John Lucas. This is centered around the 5 days when Dunkirk is happening as well. So you have a whole bunch of British soldiers trapped and being bombarded and strafed, and you have to get them out, and what was happening in London at the time. That was a very hectic and stressful time, and it behooves me to learn more about it. Behooves me to learn more about anything, really. Then we have The Nameless Queen by Rebecca McLaughlin, which is a YA fantasy. So everybody expects this one girl to inherit the throne, but then it turns out that a member of the lowest possible class, the Nameless, inherits it instead, and so it's the politics and the repercussions of that. Next we have From Silk to Silicon by Jeffrey E. Garton, which is globalization through 10 lives. Several of them I know, such as Genghis Khan, if I can find them, Margaret Thatcher, let's see, John D. Rockefeller, and Prince Henry, but the rest of them I don't know, and I think it's a very interesting way to portray globalism from the time of Genghis Khan to now. Next we have Before the Broken Star by Emily King, who also wrote The 100th Queen. The 100th Queen looks fascinating to me as well, so at some point I'll read that and buy it. Not necessarily in that order, but this one just looked good and it was cheap, so I got it. Our main character Everly is the lone survivor of her family's assassination and was saved by her crafted clockwork heart. And so she's trying to take revenge. I'm always down for a revenge story. Then we have Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky by Kwame Mbalia. This is I don't actually know which mythology we're doing with this. I mean, African American, because we've got Brer Rabbit in there and John Henry. I don't know who John Henry is, which probably is awful, but we have a 7th grader, Tristan. He failed to save his best friend and is being sent to his grandparents' farm in Alabama for a while, and all sorts of fun ensues. It is a Rick Riordan Presents publication, which means it's going to be Percy Jackson-esque, and I'm all down for that. Then we have Race to the Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, which is the same kind of thing, but with Navajo mythology. I love Navajo mythology. I know next to nothing about it, but what I know I like. I also just really like learning about anything and everything. So, here's a good way to do it. I have Echo North by Joanna Ruth Meyer, which is... oh good, we have a city and a father. Nope, we have a father who mysteriously disappears and then reappears 6 months later, half frozen, and there's a wolf. That's all I need to know. It sounds very good, and the cover looks Celtic and Norse, so I'm curious to see how that plays in. Then we have Dark and Deepest Red by Anna Marie McLemore. This is, oh yeah, this is a dual timeline. One of the timelines is in 1518 when the dance fever took over Strasbourg, and basically people were dancing and they couldn't stop, and so a bunch of people died. And then comes to modern times and the same kinds of things are happening, and our main character has to figure out what it is. Nobody knows about the dance problem from 1518 in Strasbourg, and so the fact that there's a book out there that has that as one of its points meant that I needed this book. Next we have Landon Carter, Uneasy Kingdom, Revolution and Rebellion on a Virginia Plantation by Rhys Isaac. This is, yeah, during the Revolution, planters in Virginia freaked out because if people up north could fight against the powers that be, it meant that the slaves might be inspired and fight back, and as a plantation owner that was a really bad thing because there was a good chance you would end up dead. And it turns out this is the story of one of those plantations. Next we have Krakatoa by Simon Winchester. This is the story of the explosion of Krakatoa in 1883. It changed a lot of things and affected the world. All I know is that it was a massive explosion, and I'm very interested in learning more. Next we have Mercedes Lackey's Unnatural Issue, which my mom bought me when I was home for Christmas. This is part of her Elemental Masters novel, and it's set in Yorkshire with our main character Suzanne. She's her father's only child, but she basically never sees him, and so she's happy with herself, just doing chores and chilling. But it turns out that her father has hated her all of her life because her mom died in childbirth, giving birth to her, and so he turns very bitter and twisted and things go very wrong very quickly. But I love Mercedes Lackey, and this, I don't have this one yet, so I do now. Next we have The Path Between the Seas by David McCullough. This is the creation of the Panama Canal. Again, I don't know much about it. I do know they enlarged it a couple of years ago, which makes sense because ships have gotten a lot bigger. But I am fascinated. I am a little bit, I guess, concerned at the length of this book because we have 600 pages about digging through a continent. But apparently there's a lot more to it than just digging through a continent, so we'll find out. To be clear, I know that Panama is an isthmus, and so we dug through it because it was the narrowest part, but you're still separating continents. Anyway, next we have The Beggar King by Oliver Putsch. Pronunciation butchered, I know. I'm sorry. This is 1662, and we have a hangman of a village in the Alps receives a letter from his sister calling him to an imperial city, and it's a murder mystery set in 1662, which just sounds great. Then we have Lady Elizabeth, also by Alison Weir. I would like to collect and read all of her books at some point. Elizabeth I, though, need I say more. Then we have Elizabeth I by Margaret George. I have read this book, I really enjoyed it, and I understand why she cut it down to only encompass certain years of Elizabeth's life, but it doesn't mean that I wanted her entire life to be covered. I do not own this, or did not own this until now, but since I have read it and I love Elizabeth, I wanted a copy. Also got A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer, but that is in the pile for my February TBR, and I don't want to dig through it because it's very precariously balanced right now. So, also got that. It is the last in what I believe is duology. That is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Loved the first one, planning on getting to the second one in February. And then last but certainly not least, my aunt and uncle, when they came out for Christmas, gave me pieces of cardboard with the covers from the first Harry Potter books pasted on them, because my Christmas gift from them was this monster of a box, which is the first 3 illustrated editions of Harry Potter. So, Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, and The Prisoner of Azkaban. But they didn't want to drag this monster all the way out to Colorado in their suitcase, which is totally fair, because having dragged an entire set of Harry Potter from South Africa to Grand Forks, North Dakota, it's heavy and it's a pain. Totally worth it for me, but it's heavy and it's a pain. So I went to Wisconsin in January and I collected my books. I'm so very excited about them. They're beautiful and I cannot wait to get into them. As it happens, I also got a birthday gift from one of my cousins, a belated birthday gift, because I was meant to go there for Thanksgiving and then we got like an ice storm basically, and so I couldn't drive to Wisconsin without falling into the Mississippi, which seemed like a really bad idea. But that said, I got my birthday gift from one of my cousins, and it is this beautiful box. There are antique maps on it and pretty painted palm trees, more antique maps, and then you open it up and it's a box with a clock. And I realized that this is probably only exciting to me, but I really like clocks. And then the fact that this is just antique and it's a box and I can put stuff in it, it is perfect. So apparently she saw it in her local vintage thrift store, whatever you want to call it, and thought of me. And so this is what she got me for my birthday, and it's perfect. And I know it's not bookish, but I had to show it off because it is beautiful and I'm so excited about it. That is my January book haul. A fair number of them, maybe not a fair number of them, but several of them were gifted, and a fair number of them were gotten from my library. So I did better than December anyway, because if you remember my December wrap-up, that was a lot of books. It was a lot of books. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!